Oh, there we go. That's what I want to hear. Recording in progress. Here we go. Official. Thank you all for joining me. I'm Kyler Roberts. Kyler rhymes with Tyler. I have done a bunch of comics, and some of you have joined probably based on that because you follow me on Instagram. Some of you are my friends and family. Welcome. A the um, topic for this workshop is positive and negative space. It's misleading to call it a workshop because you won't necessarily be doing a project, but there will be a small writing prompt that you will complete during this time. This is a one-time show. Hopefully there will be more, but it totally depends on how this goes and how embarrassed I am afterwards. Um, yeah, and topics will be determined 3 days before the workshop. So Chlorine Gardens University is like a pretend school. It's not accredited. It's just me and my TA here, my daughter Finley. Um, it came about when my friend Beck, Rebecca Dudley, who is there as an audience member, we walk a lot, and she was deciding what to do with herself. It was last December, and she said, "Well, I think if I just sign up for a couple classes and keep myself like occupied, I'm looking for a comics class. I don't know if Ivan still teaches at Columbia or whatever." And I said, Beck, I'll just teach a class that you can take for free. And so we did. I taught a class. Beck was student number one. Then I invited Kate Uhlman, who is also on the call. You can wait for a second, to be my second student. And then the day before the first class, I was on the phone with my mom, and I talked her into joining as the third student. So we actually had this real class that met every week, almost every week for all of last year. So I just, it went so well, and it was such a great part of my life that I thought, oh, I'll make Chlorine Gardens like a little bit bigger. And then we established an embroidery club, which merged with a knitting crochet club. And I published a coloring book, and which is available. It's on Amazon because I use their like print on demand service. But I did order a box for myself, so I will be whatever. I can sell them to people, individuals, at some point. Um, yeah, so basically, my creative process is like have an impulse that's kind of a dumb idea. Don't think about the past at all. Don't learn about anything you've ever done or not done. Just go with it. And then if you get tired of it, quit it. Um, all right, so I guess I will start talking about positive and negative space. Um, but first, my students. Um, I think everybody is an artist. I think that all the things we do are can't have the potential to be like creative projects. And to me, what that means when something is a creative project is just that you're participating in it fully, and maybe it has like a sense of yourself. And sometimes you don't feel like it's my way of going about things until somebody else watches you do that thing and was like, oh, wow, that's a system. I would never do it that way. So it's easy, I think, to recognize like the creative endeavors in those around you sometimes, because people are just like usually going about things like following their own personalities. And your personality is like your style, it's your way of doing things, it's the way you think. So the way somebody like grocery shops, like if they always go to the same store or if they go to 8 different stores like to get all the sales or something, like that's part of your style, that's part of the way you work. And if you are like a visual artist or a musician or a writer or something, I think those things go into those types of work too. I think if you're like a really chaotic person, your style is probably going to look like kind of chaotic. And I think that's the way it should be, but that's the way it is, I think. Let's see. Okay, screen share. And why isn't it letting me touch do it there? Okay. I have to just talk out loud and do things slowly. because we don't believe in slickness at Chlorine Gardens University. Okay. Now Google Slides. It's right here. And play. And we're not at the beginning. Okay. Thank you. It's not on play yet. Present on this device. Okay. Are you all seeing the logo, Chlorine Gardens, and positive and negative space, the slide? I know you're all muted. Somebody say yes out loud if you're yes.
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 Thank you. All right. So this logo was done 100% by Finley in one day. She drew the unicorn. She designed everything. We have printed it on T-shirts and merchandise, which I encourage you all to buy and wear every day. Positive and negative space in pictures and in life. So this I just took from somebody's educational website, Alejandra Yarabo. That's just showing like their name. This chair drawing probably was student work, but this is a really classic example of positive and negative space. The writer Betty Edwards, who wrote Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, I think in the 90s. I can't remember when that book was published, but that was actually my first drawing book where I really learned how to draw. And, you know, there's been so much brain research since then, but her big theory was that the right side and the left side of your brain do different functions, you know, and we know it's more complex now. But she distinguishes between left brain activities that are language based and analytical, and right side, which tends to be a little bit more emotional, but also visual and spatial. So she says the more you can tap into the right side of the brain, the better you can draw. And one of her exercises, this chair drawing, is to, you know, you draw the chair first, but then you like erase the lines of the chair itself and really focus on making the negative space. You know, you turn it black, but try to see that the shapes are really interesting. And this one, you know, the chairs are stacked, there's multiple chairs, but the black shapes are really interesting shapes. The black is the negative space, the white is the positive space, the white is the objects, the chairs themselves. But because she has like really emphasized the black and there's no lines in the white, you see the black shapes as like the most important part of the drawing. It's really about those black shapes and not so much about chairs. You might not even know that it's chairs like immediately when you look at it. So this exercise, it trains you in drawing to constantly look at the object, the shape, and the shapes around the shape. So it's the spaces in between the chairs. You know, some of them are kind of rectangular, but you can see what angles they are better sometimes when you're looking at the space than when you're looking at the chair. Oh, that image isn't coming up. Oh, wait. Shoot. I don't know why that's not coming up. Well, you've all seen MC Escher. He's sort of like the most cliche and for a good reason, like excellent example of dealing with positive negative space. This one is supposed to be horses, and there's black horses and white horses interlocking in a checkerboard pattern. And so it's all horses. There is no like negative space at all. All right. I'm going to need somebody to unmute again. Do you see something other than wooden shapes on wooden backgrounds here?
It says Thackeray Factory Home, Etsy.
No, I mean, in the wooden shapes themselves, do you see something?
Sorry.
Thank you, Fiona. Try again.
It says
Yes. We see the words in the wooden shapes.
And what word do you see?
I see one word.
Jesus.
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 Yes.
Yeah, this craft project has been around in different forms since I was little. It was in my childhood friend's home, and hers was even harder to spot because it wasn't like solid pieces of wood. But I still remember like the awe in that moment when I saw Jesus and not just like abstract wooden shapes. So you don't have to believe in Jesus in order to believe in negative space, but you can. Um, so I drew this horse. This is kind of like the default. I always call this the default composition. It's one object. It's more or less in the center of the page. The picture frame, the page, the surface, whatever, is called the composition. Composition is like every thing that you can see that's in a picture. So it's lines, shapes, colors, textures. Um, it's also principles like how is space established, or rhythm, which is sort of repetition and a sense of a beat when you look at something, or continuation is how one shape like points or leads into another. I'm not going to like define and go into a whole semester course of 2D design, but positive and negative space is one aspect of composition. And so if you just understand positive and negative space and can see it a little bit more easily, you don't have to go do chair drawings or horse drawings or whatever. But I think it's fun to teach this stuff because it might just like make you see something you would not have seen otherwise. And I think that happens every time we learn about anything. You know, if you actually learn how to bake bread, every time you go to a restaurant or eat bread anywhere, you'll think about it slightly differently. So this is like the default composition. It sort of always works. It's like very easy to make it balanced, but it really like is totally about the horse and not really about anything else. And it's not about the picture as a whole. It's just sort of about the object or the subject. So when you have a grade school picture, it's just like your face, head and shoulders with a neutral background. It's very much about a focal point. So it doesn't really matter that the value is reversed. It could be a black horse on a white background. Usually the black is often the positive space. If you think of type on a page, writing on a page, your pen is black, or the words are black, and the white you don't even think about. It's just sort of the space in the background. But when you make the space black and the object white, it puts more emphasis on the background, on the negative space. So you're kind of reversing it. But any of these things they're not universal things. Every principle that can be described in art works like kind of a lot of the time, but you can always mess it up by introducing another element, which is like so fun. Okay, so here's another horse, expertly drawn by me. Much more movement in this horse. It's also like enlarged and cropped. And now these black shapes are much, much easier to pay attention to. It's about the horse, but it's also about the background. And it's sort of like the horse's back where it meets the tail. It almost looks like an eagle's face or something. You can start to sort of see, you know, like when you're looking at clouds, you might see faces or different shapes, or a Rorschach test or something. The more you integrate the positive, negative space, and the more the shapes get unusual, the more things you can like see in it. Let's see. This is an Edward Weston photograph, Dunes Oceano from 1936. This is just an interesting, obviously it's very much about the shapes, you know, and the tones and stuff. It's about these dunes, but it's actually the shadows, those big black shapes that kind of form the focal point. You know, they're like at least as prominent as the gray ribble sections. So the sort of the default way that we look at pictures is that the object, the portrait, is usually like more important. That's like the point of the picture, and then the background is is behind. The background is like just like filler, it's just to make the portrait look better, to not be distracting or something. Like when you're on Zoom, for example, a lot of times people will pick a background that just sort of stays in the back and is kind of neutral and attractive, that doesn't like come to the front, and you are the foreground, my face, my talking mouth. Um, so, but this picture, what is the focal point? Well, it kind of moves around. My eye doesn't like stay in one place. It sort of just keeps moving from one shape to the other to the other. This is a really good example of rhythm. You kind of flow in and out and you move around. There's a lot of movement. Um, but the shapes, it's like, well, what is the subject? Is it the foreground or the background? What is the foreground and the background? Because those black shapes, even though some of them are in the distance, they seem like they come forward. It's like these interlocking shapes that it's very much like a painting. It's not like a landscape where you just sort of look to the distance. This is an Edgar Degas painting. The Impressionist artists, Edgar Degas and Mary Cassatt, like especially, were really influenced by Japanese prints and also photographs. And their compositions are really experimental and strange. So they don't just have a cluster of people posing in the center, making sort of a triangular shape and then a nice landscape in the background. There's this huge space of, I don't know what, sort of ochre brown, the ground, that is the negative space in this picture, but it's like taking up the center of the painting. So they're not only are the people not in the center, but they're looking in all different directions off of the painting. So your eyes kind of like, my eyes like jump around. Like, what is the focal point? Who is the most important person? Like I don't even ask those questions because it's like, it's just a scene, it's just a bunch of like really cool shapes. I mean, I think it's probably about the dog. Isn't the dog the most important? Like a very noble profile with like a bunch of space around it. But then if you look at the little girl that's like most in the center, the tip of her nose has like a little spot of sun just landing on it. And it's like, is the tip of her nose important? If this were a Renaissance painting, it would be highlighted because it's important. In Degas' work, there are things that don't have any like rank in terms of their importance or their meaning, but they become visually really prominent. And that I love so much. That is like how the world actually is in terms of my attention span. It's like, why can't I stop looking at that woman's shoe? It's because it catches my eye, and there's no other reason usually than that. All right. So yeah, just looking at the negative space in a painting sometimes is just sort of a flat color, but sometimes there's stuff going on that's maybe blurry. Like if you look at the trees and that distance building and stuff, that's all kind of negative space, even though there is stuff in it. All right. This is a crocheted blanket I found on Etsy. That's just the name of the shop, M Knit Crochet. This one I picked out because it's the same pattern in each square, the flower, but because the color usage changes so much, there are certain squares where the flower is really, really clearly the positive space coming forward, like the red flower right in the center. It's so obviously a flower. And then the dark blue really sits in the background, is clearly the negative space. But then if you look at the bottom right one with the brown leaves or petals, the center and the background that are all like very similar tones, the blue really stands out. That's the negative space, but it's like more important than the flower petals. I think that is so fun and so cool. I mean, it's just interesting to me when people do things that like kind of break the rules of visual art, but still it looks really beautiful. All right, so this is one of my favorite artists of all time, Parmigian, and I know nothing about him. I've never I've never read a single detail about his life. Um, this painting was made in 1527. He's Italian. Um, and this is the conversion of St. Paul. But the way he does composition, the way he paints is so bizarre. It's so bizarre for the sake of being bizarre, I swear. Anyway, any time I can use his work as an example for anything, I definitely will. But this one, if you look at that shape of the blue landscape, that's like underneath the guy's arm and the horse's leg, like that's a negative space area. And if you know about atmospheric perspective, things in the distance are often painted sort of blue gray because that's how it looks when we have a bunch of like air or moisture. Things do look cooler in the distance. It's like a spatial trick, and it's supposed to really recede. But because of the composition and the contrast and the placement near the center, that little blue rectangle like comes forward to me, and like really I want to look at it a whole lot more than I look at other things even. But also like the horse's face is another focal point. It's way up high. When the focal point is like in almost the margin or framing of the picture, I think that is like a wild thing to do and so cool. And I love this, like, there's like, it's not a four-leaf clover, but it's like a tiny plant that's just underneath this guy's like arm. There's like a beautiful negative space, brown arch, and then this one little plant just gets to be like a special little plant. And like none of those details have anything to do with the story of the conversion of St. Paul, the topic of the painting, communicating like the um the narrative, but it's like a really intense moment. It's full of action. All right, and this is just another one by Parmigian, Five Angels. This again is like the craziest painting. I want you to find all of the hands in this composition and then figure out whose hands they are. Because none of the hands like have anything to do with any of the bodies. It would be completely impossible. I wish I had a laser pointer. That's the only thing. Oh, is there? Oh, no. Ben's trying to help me here. No, you're gonna get us off the meeting. No, 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 no. Okay. I don't know how to use the laser pointer. Are you seeing the painting anymore, or did it disappear? Yes, you are. Okay. Five Angels. So this little one that's looking down has a hand underneath its chin. And I don't know, is it resting his or her jaw in their own hand? I think it's the other angel, like in the top right hand, but then like what hand is on the shoulder in the foreground? That's yeah. It doesn't make any sense though. Like I don't know. It's just like nuts. And like most artists, like if a hand doesn't have to show, they're like good, I don't have to draw hands. But he's just throwing them in just for fun. So there's like almost no negative space in this painting. Like what would be negative space is just another head and then another head and then another head. There's like a tiny bit of flat background in the top and that's it. So let's see. And then this one also, Kuno Amiet, I don't know how to pronounce that name. Also an artist that I don't know a single thing about. But this one, it breaks into like light and dark, which you could see as like positive and negative space, but it has nothing to do with the can you see what those notifications are? It has nothing to do with the woman. you think, okay, this painting is about a woman. She's just standing there and there's like some greenery behind her, but it's really totally about light, and probably maybe the season or the time of year a little bit. So this one, I want to talk about positive and negative space and like turn it into sort of a metaphor for how we look at things, at objects, at life, at events. Because if you think of positive space as representing like solid, real things, people, animals, buildings, whatever, and you think of the negative space as just like the air in between, the backgrounds, the incidental shapes. Um, this object, this woman, is made up of both, and the background is made up of both. The positive and negative space have nothing to do with like the physical things in this picture. It's all about light. And we don't often think about light as like the principal force that defines things. You go on a walk and you notice, oh, it's sunny, there's shadows. Oh, it's overcast, there aren't. But you still think, oh, there's that house, I know who lives there. There's the store that I walk by. That we think of like objects, physical things as being like constant. Those are the things that are real, instead of like the circumstances that are always changing as being like the most real or the most important thing, like light. Um, okay, so I'm gonna get way back into this topic, but we're done with the slides. Finn made this slide of herself. um, Scott and I are the artists. We have created this work called Finley in 2010. She's made out of bone, blood, flesh, and organs, which we just glued together. Um, so let's see. I'm going to stop the share now. I have to, of course, say all this out loud. Oh, you're going to do that for me. Thank you. She is so much better at tech stuff than I am. So we're all seeing the gallery view again, or whatever people. I don't know if people are adding to the chat. Is that what it is? Or oh, um, yeah, that's like so far beyond my capacity reading comments while I'm doing this. So I did a Zoom talking about my work like in the pandemic when everybody was doing Zooms, and it was like dead quiet like this is now, but there was a moderator asking me questions, and the after I got done with my super silent slide talk, the moderator said, thank you so much, we were you can't hear us but we were all laughing, which made me feel better. And then someone wrote in the chat, I wasn't laughing. I was like, thanks. Why are you here? Sorry to put you through this.
Would you,
okay. What's that?
Kyler, would you prefer if we took off mute? So you can hear us drinking and hear me making kissy noises at my cat, but
yes,
would you like that interaction or no?
I would love that, Fiona. Thank you.
Okay.
And she did the right thing by just talking out loud. If you raise your hand, I will not see it. I'll just plow through. Yeah, feel free to make some noise, unmute yourself. Hopefully your dog is barking. All right. So I got through, I think, most of what I have to just like look for a second. All right. I already put this on Instagram, but I want to show you this amazing notebook that Brian Cremens bought for me, and it says college, so it's very, very formal and official. So this is the workshop part for 8 minutes. You can feel free to mute and turn off your camera for this if you want. I'll time it. You're just going to free write. So this can be in paragraphs, or it can be lists. It can be little pictures if you like to draw. It can be anything, but it's just, stream of consciousness, thinking about positive and negative space as a metaphor for something in your life. So one thing to think about is that positive space is an event. It is this workshop because you got here, you knew sort of what it was going to be. It's at a certain time of day. It has a very clear beginning and end. Or something else that you do, go to a movie, even the things that you do yourself that aren't scheduled, an event in your life would be eating lunch, especially if you like prepare a meal, put it on a plate and sit down. The negative space is more like the stuff you eat throughout the day, like you're walking through the house with a cracker, you're eating something juicy over the sink. You don't really think about it as an event. So that's your negative space. The negative space is also like the 5 minutes before you sat down, to think about this workshop and get nervous and wonder what you were thinking when you said it was going to happen. So you're just thinking about metaphors for the positive space in your life and the negative space in your life. And obviously, this is not literal. There's no right answers. There's no there's no wrong answers. There's definitely no right answers. So yeah, just have fun. All right, I'm gonna start my timer and then I'll turn off we can turn off our cameras. All right, ready, set, go. All right. There are a few, I'm ending a few seconds early. That was like the longest 8 minutes of my life. Um, I think at this point, I'm going to stop the recording. I realize that the two people who are going to watch this on YouTube aren't going to want to watch 8 minutes of quiet. Probably. But also, I want everybody to be totally unself-conscious about sharing a little bit. So, gosh, thank you. Help me out. Stop recording. There we go.